Hi, my name's Rachel, and much to the chagrin of a bunch of people on book threads, I am here to tell you my worst books of the year. Today's video is, like I said, going to be my worst books of the year video, but it's actually going to show you two things. It's going to serve two purposes. I'm going to go back through and talk about the worst books of the year and go from the least bad nonsense to the most bad nonsense, but I'm also going to show you how much I utilize books in audio format and tandem read, because listen to me, users of book threads, I want the book community as a whole to make a New Year's resolution to not have any more cyclical discourse, especially not about whether audiobooks count as books and or reading. Here's the answer. Yes, they do. Case closed. You should be glad people read at all. You should not be setting arbitrary rules about whether other people's reading counts or not. This debate is utterly pointless. Audiobooks allow me to multitask, so I get to set a higher reading goal than I would if I wasn't audiobooking, which is fun for me. Just let people have fun and read their books without your insistence on arguing semantics for no reason. If you're an audiobook reader, audiobook your way through 2025, hit your reading goals, and tune out everybody who wants to say that audiobooks do not count as reading. These are all great New Year's resolutions that are even easier to do when you use your Raycon everyday earbuds. Here are mine. Raycon's everyday earbuds come with active noise cancellation. This is a feature that is a must, not just so that you can tune out argumentative weirdos who want to tell you that audiobooks don't count as reading, but as a mom, personally, I don't know if you know this, kids are loud. Active noise cancellation is a feature that can be hard to find at an accessible price point. Until now. Their ergonomic design is made to comfortably fit the widest range of ears, and optimized gel tips make for a cozy custom fit. They also have a quick charge function, and they charge inside of this case. 10 minutes of charging yields 90 minutes of battery life. So you just pop them back in the case and then they charge inside of here, and the case has a protective case on the outside of it, which I love. They have so many cute styles and colors, and the everyday earbuds don't just have active noise cancellation. If I'm at the gym and I need to listen for my kids and make sure that they're not acting foolish, I can just turn on awareness mode with a tap of my finger, and then I can hear my kids running around acting foolish and all of the men grunting. Why are so many men grunting at the gym? But I can hear that and still hear my book or the Arcane soundtrack. Changing the settings is easy. It's just a tap away, and they come in weatherproof or sweat resistant. These are my favorite headphones I have ever had. I'm always using them for work, or if I'm outside, or if I'm at the gym. These are basically always in my ears. Join me in audiobooking in 2025 and get 15% off site-wide. That's 15% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/readswithrachel. Get started today meeting your 2025 audiobook goals, which yes, count as reading. Just click that link below, and thank you so much to Raycon for sponsoring today's video. All right, again, this is going least bad to most bad. The ones on the bottom are like 1.5 to 1.75s, and they all kind of share commonalities. So I'm just gonna do these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in bulk. They all already have rant reviews. So those are Wicked is the Reaper, The Sacrifice and the Spare, Sweet Inferno, A Fire in the Sky, A Fate Inked in Blood, and The Fox and the Falcon. Now, of these, I read 3 of them on audio. Well, tandem read. Wicked is the Reaper was a case where it was just a lot of insta-love and plot holes, and we were so focused on being horny that we weren't focused on answering basic questions. If for some reason you're thinking, hey, does that title have a double meaning? Yes, and the secondary meaning is that the man's name, who is the love interest in this book, is named Wicked. Moment of silence to let that sink in. Book Talk said, hey, do you want another romantasy that has spice in it? This one's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. And I, never knowing when to quit, said, all right, be our guest, they said. No, it's too early for a Beauty and the Beast joke. Mom and dad are the king and queen, and she has a younger sister. All the men have to bring the biggest deer, and whoever brings the biggest deer gets to marry the princess. And this is happening because the Fae overlords deem it so, and she's not allowed to go into the forest. She's forbidden because of the tales of the reaper who haunted the trees, pierced our dreams, fearing the evil that rooted in its soil. The writing leaves a little something to be desired, but the Fae are not around. They don't hang out in Aetheris. I don't even really understand if they are on the planet or if they are elsewhere. It had never been clear to me why the Fae cared at all, but I suspected it was to remind everyone who held the balance of our lives in their hands. Well, you just said that it's because that's how it's done in their world. So wouldn't it be that, and again, they're not there experiencing it. So sure, what do they care? But wouldn't it be about this supposed fey morality, that these ideas and rules that they have that are better than human rules, so they're imposing that upon. I mean, you called it colonization. That is typically what, like, certainly what colonizers have done historically, is impose their, you know, their idea of morality upon the population. I don't know, this just seems a little wishy-washy. I'm not the Reaper, but the title is, this man's name is the Reaper. So wouldn't the title need to be Wicked is not the Reaper? The thing you humans call the Reaper is actually an ogre and lives somewhere deep in the woods. There were 2 monsters haunting the forest. Why does everyone call it the Reaper then? Obviously because it kills everything it sees. Not very clever, are you, princess? No, she's not. I am very confused though, because isn't it that is she asking what the word Reaper means? Was this written in a hurry? The sacrifice and the spare was basically the same issue. I was sitting there wondering, like, why did we do arranged marriage vampire, but then we didn't think about the implications of arranging a marriage to a vampire? And then the villain, I was so disappointed because the way that the villain in that was written made absolutely no sense. This is a standalone romantic fantasy featuring a murder mystery and a arranged marriage between a vampire woman and a human guy who is a prince, and he is the spare. He is the prince, what's that guy's name? The redhead one? Harry? He's the Prince Harry. So it's Prince Harry meets Underworld. God, I wish. That sounds actually much better than what we actually have for you today. Really heavy on the rhymes with corny, but this one is too short to do that to this degree, especially because how dare you not give me a decent murder mystery, you tease. We enter and they've already been married, so we just skip past the marriage and we are at the wedding feast. What is she feasting on? Nothing, because they didn't prepare any blood for her.
I will make your neck my chalice.
And they're all sort of treating her like shit. I'm not really sure why she needed to marry him, like what they got out of it other than, like, I guess maybe now they're agreeing not to kill each other, except she was like created to marry him, but we never go into depth with this, so I don't know. I don't really know what the stakes are here. Why are you asking me? I just read it.
Why should I know these things? Do you know them?
We could have had them meeting before the wedding and having a conversation, and then we just skipped past the wedding to the next scene is, you know, him talking to this girl that he used to fuck. Or honestly, cut out the girl he used to fuck entirely because she's completely useless to the story. So she was made by the vampire leader Santiago, made into a vampire. She does not remember her former family. She has no flashbacks of her life before, and she doesn't think, why am I doing this?
I'm a blood-sucking fiend. Look at my outfit.
Ever. She just does it. So she got made into a vampire to be a sacrifice, to sit with the humans, to hang with them for a treaty, I guess. I don't know. Very wishy-washy. Didn't need to be this way. Could have done some cool shit with that. Sweet Inferno was a witch and a shifter, if I remember correctly. I remember the mechanics of this sex scene in this made absolutely no sense, and this was the most insta-lovey, no, not insta-love, insta-horny thing that I've read in a while. There wasn't even time for them to like each other. And then we threw a bunch of other stuff, like plot-adjacent things in the mix that were going to lead into the next series, but I couldn't help but wonder what the point of this was. This book is about a werewolf doing espionage and the fire witch that he meets, and immediately the heat is on. As in, I'm not joking, chapter 2, the heat is on. We did 3 sex scenes in a novella, but we didn't build any world in a way that made me understand, like, the lore of the werewolves. I do not understand the politics here. Grandmother used to burn sandalwood incense. How was he preventing her from accessing his thoughts? I was so confused at this point. I'm like, why did we randomly throw the grandma burning incense in here? Because it never comes up again. And also, why didn't we break the paragraph? What does that have to do with him preventing her from using her telepathy? Help me! Her almond-shaped pools enveloped him, which is a weird thing to say about eyeballs. It's too much, but not enough. Oh my god, it's just so cringy. Breasts pushed together in a vision of womanly power. No, I don't like any of this. And since when had she begun thinking of him as her thief? That's a good question. I have another question. Why are we italicizing thief? I realize that I keep asking. You know what this is reminding me of? You know when you play Zelda, Link's Awakening, and you steal from that little guy with the shop, and he gets really mad at you, and the next time you go in the shop, he electrocutes you until you're dead? and then everybody after this knows that you stole, and so they stop calling you Link and they start calling you Thief. And it's italicized. Why are we italicizing Thief? Stop it. A Fire in the Sky was one of the dragon books that I read. This one ended up being Dragon Shifters. I could not believe that this was a traditionally published book that went through several rounds of edits and we still landed on that version of events. A romantasy so undercooked, I believe it gave me salmonella poisoning. Most of the time, the line level writing here is fine. It's that we didn't do anything. It takes us 40% to catch up to the synopsis itself, and then nothing happened. We go on a wild dragon chase, literally. We have some pretty interesting sex scenes. We have a love triangle for no reason. And then he attacks Fel, our love interest. And Fel, mid being attacked, right, is thinking, even now I want to drag Tamsin back to bed and have her again and again. What is this witchery? And I'm like, that's just hormones, bud, but also real bad time for that, don't you think? Take you a nice cold shower, my guy. They're fighting. They're physically fighting over her just having had sex with him in front of everybody, and he's naked. He is still naked, and so is she. Suddenly my wife was there, one word from her and I stopped. How did she have this effect on me so quickly? We're at 36% into this book right now. You guys got hitched 2 seconds ago. I do not know. All sense has been lost. I don't understand what we're doing here. I will never forget the marriage consummation scene, because this was also an arranged marriage thing, because the marriage consummation scene was literally this TikTok. I'll just show you the clip from the video.
It had been 2 days since I learned that magic was real, and I was trapped in the evil shadow man Fargus's dungeon. It was wet down there, just like I was wet down there when I met the man made of shadows. "There you are, my love," he said as he slithered into my dungeon. His throat bobbed, then my throat bobbed, then his throat bobbed, and then he growled, "We're going to see the king tonight, where we must make love in front of him, and if we don't, he'll kill us both." "Why?" I said. "I don't want to make love to you even though you're the hottest man I've ever seen. I just want to go home and feed my 50 sisters and do my arts and crafts." "We must make love. We must make love in front of the king. Otherwise, he'll know we're lying to him, because, by the way, I'm actually not a bad guy." "Let's do it," I said. So in front of the king, he slipped inside of me. Shadows inside of me. Mist inside of me. A lot like if you put your coochie right on an air conditioning unit. It was so hot, but inside I was so cold. I climaxed to save my family.
Yeah, that's this book. I'm not shitting you. So there is, we have to have sex in front of people for the good, but I'm not actually a bad guy. Like, all of that, that's literally the book. Like, it's so cookie cutter that TikTok nailed it on accident. And then in the last, like, 5 minutes of the book is a sex scene, and then the guy's brother shows up, and I was like, that was the most anticlimactic, despite including a literal climax, and I don't mean plot-wise, thing I have ever read. And then it just ends. And I thought that this was a standalone, and it was at the last moment, at the last chapter, the last sentence, that I realized, oh no, this is not over. Oh no, oh dear. And I felt like it was just sort of like trying to ride the high of like, Fourth Wing has dragons in it, how can we make dragons even hornier? We'll make the people the dragons. A Fate Inked in Blood was the most heavy-handed thing I read this, I mean, just truly, that wasn't even trying to make the plot twist surprise you. And if it was, then I am shocked and appalled. You can't be serious. That was the most heavy-handed thing I've ever read, with possibly the most stupid main character I've ever, at least in 2025, had to deal with. A young woman named Freya, who has a secret power and a prophecy surrounding her, gets forced to marry a guy who is shitty, whose son she met before she met the guy who she was forced to marry, and immediately she has the hots for the guy's son. Ta-da! Oh, and then we go on a wild goose chase, running all over the world because Freya is important, because prophecy. I got more and more mad as I read this. I just cannot believe how much of a waste of time this was. I mean, why? Why did we do things this way? We just go on and on about how horny she is and how she's avoiding the very obvious clues to what is going on, only for it to be revealed later and it to be a betrayal somehow. Several times this main character is told these two men did not kill the love interest's mom. and she's still like, one of them did it. And it's like, it's been explicitly told to you several times, and I just feel like if you only had a brain. The Fox and the Falcon was a sequel to a book that I read earlier in this year, which is The Deer and the Dragon. I thought The Deer and the Dragon was okay. I gave it a 2.25. The Fox and the Falcon was a whole lot of nothing, with lines that made me absolutely cackle. And I think that the review of that is going to go up after this video, but here's a snippet of me explaining the sex scene in chapter 2. I reached up to touch his utterly perfect face, and the sound he made as he kissed my palm was so tender it nearly broke my heart, except my precious organ was too pickled in serotonin. First the glitter and now the pickles. My precious organ was too pickled in serotonin to ever experience heartbreak. And listen to me, I understand what's trying to be said here. It's not that I don't get it, it's that what is being said is ridiculous and is not rooted in reality. Just a lot of writing that doesn't make sense, and we went to 60% of the book getting everybody to come with us to go to the Phoenician realm to get our boyfriend back again, which we are repeating the same plot again, only to be again anticlimactic. Like, nothing fun happened. It wasn't even a plot. It was just stringing along Marlowe, whatever her last name is, Merritt Finnegan is her other pseudonym, through the different pantheons and realms until we land in the Phoenician realm and she gets told that she's stupid by like multiple gods, including her best friend, who I don't know when they became best friends, but okay. And then her boyfriend, I think, made her squirt in the Phoenician realm. I don't know, it was a little unclear. All right, so that's the bottom rung. The next one up would be the Book of Azrael. Ugh. In this beginning, we are just talking about Diana do bad things because Diana loves sister. We could have had this entire beginning basically been gone and done an inciting incident where we introduced Diana as a person trying to, who has been for a long time, making a very intricate plan to escape this dude who has been exploiting her and also keep her sister safe, like get them both out of this like fantasy organized crime basically. But instead, she's just like, well, I'm gonna do bad things, save my sister for almost 20% of this book, and it's so boring and completely unnecessary. This one I tandem read. I bought the audiobook. I read on audio. I'm reading this and I can't help but notice that it's set in a secondary world, and yet the phrase his Italian suit was used in like chapter 1. She just describes seeing somebody and it says, his Italian suit bit tighter than the black dress I wore. His what? Italy does not exist in this world. And I'm like, how did that get missed? Possibly. So this is set in a world where it's like Crescent City. So we're in a different world, but we've got cell phones, we've got guns, right? And we've got magical entities. But then we're using Italian soup, but Italy doesn't exist in this world. And then I couldn't help but notice that it tried to sound like it was using like almost Spanish. So it would say words like biblioteca, but not biblioteca. But the worst, like, and that would have been fine. It's just that was evidence to me that it was trying to sound like almost maybe like Spanish, but then it wasn't Spanish. And apparently we didn't Google, because the word for mother was not madre, it was merda. And merda is Portuguese and French, I think, and Italian for shit. Several languages that are related to Spanish, the word for shit. He was calling her merda. So when he says, merda, can I ask you a question? I just died laughing. I'm sorry, but you just affectionately called your mother shit. If you're gonna create your own language based off of an existing language, make sure that you're not calling your mom shit. The point is, I thought this book was really bad and really long. And also what we were doing with manipulating our main character using her sister just felt really shallow. I was really mad reviewing that book. I expected so much more out of it. And again, I bought that audiobook. Another one that I read on audiobook, which the audiobooks for Colleen Hoover's books are genuinely so lackluster and bad. I don't understand how she has the following that she has. If you are outselling the Bible in 1 year, you would think that you were getting these like performances that are so above and beyond. Like Saskia Marveld is right there doing incredible audiobook work. Robin Miles, now I'm gonna rant rant about how much I love certain audiobook narrators. But then for some reason, Colleen Hoover is getting really lackluster narrators. So that probably did not help at all, but the content of It Ends With Us is genuinely bad. I think a lot about death, especially today, because I gave an epic eulogy for the prodigious Andrew Bloom, father of Lily Bloom, who once fell in love with a homeless guy and brought great shame upon her entire family. I hate the way this is framed. Oh God, it just feels so disingenuous, but I guess I need to get used to that in Colleen Hoover books, don't I? Especially this one, which was mismarketed to all hell. No reason to boil down Atlas to just that. And if we were going to talk about it, maybe you could say, first guy I ever had sex with was asking me how long until I turned 16, because that's really the red flag behavior there. Not that Atlas was kicked out of his house by his mom, but in fact, that he was asking you, when do you turn 16? For, you know, purposes. Naked truth, I wanted to go back to the roof to see you, but I was scared you'd be there. You make me nervous. Oh, red flag.
Put that sentence back in your mouth!
Red flag, please elaborate, because it's sounding like red flag. He says, my turn? I still very much want to fuck you. And his sister hears this and is horrified. Which girl? Same, but for different reasons. And they are all just weird about this, and instead of explaining they've met before, but this is a Colleen Hoover book, why would we communicate with each other like normal humans? I don't care that Colleen Hoover put a note at the end that said that she was, domestic violence. I'm just trying to stand up for victims of domestic violence. You did not do that. You wrote two terrible men. You wrote an 18-year-old who was disappointed he couldn't fuck a 16-year-old, and then he was the hero, I guess. I was really, really disgusted with that book. And again, I think that if you're looking for a book that discusses domestic violence in a way, like from the perspective of somebody who experienced it, and you're looking for a book that discusses it, I can't recommend hard enough Carmen Maria Machado's In the Dream House. Now, this is a work of nonfiction, but it also is written like a horror, and I think does a really good job of discussing the intricacies of what it feels like to be in an abusive relationship in a way that is everything that Colleen Hoover could not be. The next bad one, step up from that in the ladder ascending to, well, no, I guess it's a ladder down, descending into the pits of hell, was Prince of Beasts. I did a video where I talked about monster romance. I'll link that below. This felt racist, which is often a thing in monster romance, whether or not it's done intentionally. This felt like that. The main character is getting married, is forced into this marriage by this monster guy, or he's going to invade her lands and ruin her, people's lives and assumedly kill them. First thing we need to talk about is that this man's name is Jackal. Jackal. There's no way she could fall for Jackal, especially when his body is so strange and unlike hers, right? The Burbar bludgeoned their way through the elves' ranks, bringing them to their knees. Once the Burbar have finished taking the elven lands, they turn their sights on us. This is all happening because this man on the cover wants to marry this woman on the cover. So he bludgeons his way through the elves to get to her, even though he could have just sent a letter. She's forced into this relationship with him, and there's a part where she's like, you understand our customs so well. And it sounded, somebody in my comment said, it sounded like, how white people say, wow, your English is so good. It did sound like that. And that's basically the theme of the book. But also, we can't help but talk about the penis thing. So the way that this is described can only show up in my mind as one of these extremely dangerous caterpillars. I'm sorry, but the way she just described that is this caterpillar right here.
This is Florida's puss caterpillar. It is one of the most venomous insects.
Okay. Yeah, no. No. The one I put after this was Under One Roof because unlike, I'm going to assume that Allie Hazelwood should know better by now than to write sex scenes the way that she wrote them, but apparently not. Under One Roof is like a forced proximity romance where two people inherit the same house, except it's his family's house, and this woman was given it to her by her mentor for some reason. I don't know. Absolutely diabolical main character who I wanted to stab through the eyeball with a fork. No thoughts, head empty. Yep, I would say that describes you as a person, correct. I let my sentence dangle like an overcooked noodle and temporized by turning around to grab a what? A spatula? A toaster? A snack? Yes, I'll have a snack. I think I bought single servings of Cheez-Its. So did I when I was school supply shopping, and those things have like 4 Cheez-Its in them. So then she reached for them, and now he's staring at where my shirt rode up on my lower back, i.e. my ass. He's looking at me there, his lips slightly parted and his hand forgotten in midair, which means he's likely horrified by my 8-year-old sweatpants, I bet, or by the explosion of freckles on my skin, or by God, what panties do I even have on? Please let it not be the ones with Jeff Goldblum's face Hannah got me last year. And how many holes do they have? He's gonna report me to the underwear police. Now, I was in bed reading this, and I was sitting next to Carlos, and I read it out loud to him. Here is a reenactment, because I didn't start recording me and him talking about this book until several minutes later when I thought of it. Here's a reenactment of what happened just after I read this. This is my best Carlos voice. How old are these people? 14? Thank you. That is so validating. You have no idea. They're 30. Who's 30? The underwear police? But then it culminated in this sex scene. I'll just play the clip. I'm going to read it again, and I'm going to set particular music to it, okay? So you can understand what I interpreted this as, because I thought that we were going a different direction. Liam, shh. I feel his lips at my temple, warm and reassuring. Everything's okay, Mara. Something hot and liquid begins to coil at the bottom of my belly. I will never understand what we were doing in that sex scene. I just, like, that made that book, and it began and ended with that sex scene that felt like a prank. Like, I thought Ashton Kutcher was gonna jump out and be like, haha, psych, you're being punked. This isn't real. Tell me it's not real. The next ones after this were so poorly written, so astronomically stupid, and like very obviously a ripoff of Red Queen. It's Powerless and Reckless, the sequel by Lauren Roberts. I read both the self-published ebook and the audiobook. I read them at the same time, and the only things that I noticed that were different were some minor word changes on a line level. The plot is the same. There are no huge paragraphs taken out that I saw. It is just line level, slight differences that you wouldn't even notice, really. Unless, you notice that the word eradicated and irradiated are two very different things. This book's lackluster, not like other girls' main character has no power and does that thing from like Psych.
Because I'm getting a very strong feeling about this sandwich.
Exactly 2 of my psychic channels are clearing up, and I am getting something.
Where he pretends to be a psychic and then getting involved in the resistance, like Mayor Barrow. Oh my God. I don't think I have a single nice thing to say about Powerless and Reckless. I don't understand. And people are like, well, it's a YA book. I don't understand what you mean by that. I would like you to elaborate further, because allow me to pull YA books off my shelf that are actually good, don't have plot holes, have great characters. Hold on. You tried Raybearer by Jordan Ifueko? No? Then maybe be quiet. Have you ever heard of An Ember in the Ashes by Saba Tahir? Okay, well, this is YA, so what are we doing here? Forest of Souls by Lori M. Lee? Anybody? No? Okay. I'm just really confused by why you think that just because a book is written badly, that it's YA. Did you know YA books are good? They're really good. Do you hold the same energy for middle grade books? Because middle grade books are also good. There are middle grade books that are way better written than Powerless and Reckless. There are so many plot holes in this. And I remember very distinctly years ago, the author saying, oh, something doesn't add up, something's underdeveloped, don't worry, it's a trilogy. I'm on book 2 and you have yet to fill your plot holes. It's Swiss cheese in here. Are you going to magically fix all of your book's problems in the 3rd book? I think not. That it's just going to continue. It doesn't make sense. And the 2nd book was so bonkers. This book ends with this man is hunting this girl. This boy is hunting this girl for his brother, who's the king. She killed their father. He's somehow still taking his father's side. And then at the end, the king, that is now the king, that is the brother, has been sending his other brother, who's in love with her, after her. And he's like, are you going to do what needs to be done? Are you going to bring her back? Assuming that, he's going to kill her. And then he, in the end, proposes. The king proposes. Instead of the brother, Kai, thinking a normal thought for 1 second, like, oh, that's not good. That is weird. Is he having a stroke? He just thinks, now she'll never be mine. Your brother, who has been sending you after this woman who killed your father, just proposed to your father's murderer. And your first thought is, the beast never gets the beauty. Direct quote. What? I'm just saying, Raybearer would never. I'm just saying, just genuinely bad books. They're just bad. It was really funny, though, this past year, seeing that, Victoria Aveyard posted about her books, and it talked about what they were about, and people were like, did you rip off Powerless? Did you know that Red Queen is like a decade old? What are y'all doing here? You think Powerless was a blueprint for something? How? Well, how did we get here? The video is spicier than I thought it was gonna be. And by the way, I did in fact read both Powerless and Reckless. Tandem read those and partially on audiobook. Over on Everend, which has changed their subscription model for the worse. What the fuck is going on over there? All right, the next one also read partially on audiobook was Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Colleen Hoover, I read 3 books by her this year and all 3 of them are on this list. Of course. Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover was so terrible. Oh, so terrible. Those people were so shitty to each other for no reason. Was I supposed to feel bad for Tate? That her neighbor who explicitly said, hey Tate, I don't want a relationship. She like demanded a relationship out of him. But then in the past, Miles, the love interest guy, we get excerpts from his life where he talks about falling in love with his stepsister, whose name is Rachel. Okay, Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Our main characters are Miles and Tate, and he calls her Rachel. And that was strike 1 against this book.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
She's like, I'm not Rachel, I'm Tate. And then she's like, I don't know why I'm correcting him. And I'm like, yeah, me either. He's a drunk guy. Just don't talk to drunk men. And he says, I'm sorry, Rachel, you hate me so much. True, bitch, I do. Leave me out of this. You know, I just feel like that's a personal attack. I felt like somehow, some way, Colleen Hoover knew. She knew that I would read her books. And she said, from the past, I'm gonna ruin her day. I'm gonna ruin it. I'm just kidding. I know I wasn't forced to read the books. You don't need to comment and tell me, well, you didn't have a gun to your head. Yeah, Ugly Love was really dumb. It was really stupid. It was such a stupid book about these 2 people who can't communicate with each other. And in the end, she's like, well, if I sex him real good, you know, he'll fall in love with me. And then it turns out that he does. And he's like, well, I'll go talk to my ex-stepsister / former girlfriend, Rachel, about our dead baby. And then he does, and he's fine after that. And then he's like, yep, now me and Tate can be together. That could have been an email. You could have emailed Rachel. Why did you bring us into this? Okay, collectively, the committee of Rachels says denied. No, thank you. Oh, the next one. Oh, we get 2 Christian ones back to back. 2 little fundy ones. Fun! Putting the fun in fundy. The First Principle by Marissa Schrock. This is about if the leftists were to force everybody into living in a leftist dystopian where you were forced to have abortion. I don't feel like I really need to say much more, but roll the clip. Now she has to decide whether to get the mandatory abortion. Yep, you heard that correctly. Or follow her heart, try to keep the baby, and possibly ruin her mother's chances at becoming president. A rebel group called the Emancipation Warriors, who are fighting to restore freedoms once held unalienable, offer her asylum. Can Vivica trust these rebels to help her, or will they bring everything crashing down around her? Accepting their help may come with consequences she isn't ready to face. Marissa Schrock's debut novel crafts a chilling story of what may be to come if we allow the economic and moral crises currently facing our country. This book, like every other book written by a Christian nationalist, an evangelical Christian nationalist, is written for one thing and about one thing and centering one thing: Christian persecution complex. What we and a bunch of other folks have learned from the rebels who staged that failed uprising was that if we was gonna throw over the government, we had to have more people and be better organized. So we found other people who felt the same and started organizing. Oh, like Moms for Liberty. Nice. Great. Hate it. Everybody involved knew it would take years before we had the kind of numbers to think about making a difference, but we hung in there, taught our children, and kept recruiting. Now there are people in every region, in all kinds of places, even the government. We're almost ready. Every region, but not every people group. I wonder why that is, that only the people who are Christian are part of the rebel group. We had to have a conversation at the end of that video about partial birth abortion, which is not a thing. And I filmed this before the election, but after the election results and watching a bunch of men say, your body, my choice, I got really mad, and then I decided to continue on and read another Christian dystopian. This one was Defier, which I read partially on audio. I tandem read this, and this one is about a assumedly leftist group that hates Christians, and the Christian underground, called the Underground Church, which is also called the Sparrows, has to rise up when this terrorist organization led by a man named Ahab comes in and takes over the US government. All of this happens off page, by the way. This is why it's actually worse than the other book, because it was so passive. And this girl, our main character, Lennox, her parents were killed by this terrorist organization, and then so was her best friend, and then she has to find the courage to not deny her faith, and she is the girl who stood when she's asked to kneel. And we get a lot of talk about, you know, the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, which of course has been like co-opted and corrupted by fundamentalist evangelical Christians. Like even like growing up, I would hear that and they'd be like, there was a fourth person in the fire and that fourth person was Jesus. No, it wasn't. We can't just say things like that. Lennox's favorite Bible story growing up was the one about the Hebrew boys who stood up for their faith and would not bow, not even under intense political pressure, not even upon threat of death. The Hebrew boys' unwavering trust in God led them to declare, God will deliver us, and even if he doesn't, we will not bow. Something about that story always resonated deep with Lennox. The story and its message was so deeply ingrained in her heart that she could not forget, even though she almost wanted to in the midst of her pain. Yeah, it's so deeply ingrained because it gets told to us like 5,000 times a week. We have to do how many fucking coloring sheets on Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? See how Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego went in the furnace? Make sure you choose the furnace if you have to. Like, this is the shit they're teaching kids that are like 5 years old in Fundyland. And of course, the evil leftists who take over the government run by the guy named Ahab, whose motives are never specified, run a thing called the Global Weather Simulator, which has been creating and manufacturing climate change in order to create chaos and unrest. So climate change is a myth created by leftists run by a guy named Ahab because he hates Christians, I guess? How can he do that? Can no one stop them? He has numbers, soldiers that will do anything for him, whatever cost. They've assembled a weapon. This is where I really started to lose it. Climate change is not only a myth, it's manufactured. Why haven't we heard any of this on the news? Lennox said. I could only suspect they did not want to create public panic or mass hysteria. There's already enough civil unrest. The government is barely holding the states together as it is. One minute the land seems fine and the next, terrible extremes. They have already demolished thousands of acres and have destroyed entire cities with fire, tornadoes, hurricanes, and tsunamis. The regime plagued the countries that would not surrender with what they call acts of God.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Do you understand that?
Okay. The next one I read, I guess the Christian ones are probably worse, but this one really did piss me off because this is a traditionally published book and I just feel like there were so many people working on it that they should have done a better job. I did read this partially on audio. Absolutely hated the audio performance. It was Assistant to the Villain. Ugh. I expected to like this, actually, and I talked about this in my review. I did not like this. The main character, Evie, gets infantilized, like unbelievably so. And he's like, I can't think about Evie sitting there with her wide eyes. And we have taken another opportunity to showcase that Evie is like a child. See, Evie's mannerisms, not just the tongue sticking out, but the regular mannerisms that she does on a daily basis. In fact, I can show you how much they come up. Her eyes are widening all the time. And also, my favorite, her nose is always scrunching in a way that Tristan finds adorable. And see, on its own, that probably wouldn't be a problem, but the context of her sticking her tongue out and all the klutz and all the innuendo, she's made out to be a child. And these childlike qualities are what he is attracted to about her, and it grosses me out. And I talked about how much I felt like this was playing off the whole Felicity and Oliver from Arrow thing. What did happen in this book? Olicity from Arrow. He's the older, almost fatherly figure who takes care of her, and she's the younger, cutesy but awkward person who works with him, but he has to help her get out of trouble and be the villain for her, but never to her. But don't worry, he'd never hurt her. What would she do without him? The power dynamic between them makes me hate any sort of romantic involvement there. So when I open Assistant to the Villain and it was Olicity to a T from the jump, I was immediately out. And it was fine when they were friends, but when you romanticize infantilizing a girl in comparison to a guy, I get the ick. I've heard that it works better as a skit, and I'm sure it does. That's how it started, was a TikTok skit. I'm sure that it works better as a skit. This is not a book. It's just a series of things and her slipping on a banana peel and going, oopsie. and him being like, I'll have to help you up because I'm the big strong man, and then her accidentally doing an innuendo and being like, oh gosh, I can't stand it. I just feel like that's so weird to do to a grown woman. 1 star. The next one I also read partially on audio. This one pissed me off for its use of trigger warnings, not so accidental cannibalism, questionable use of a mummified corpse, lobotomized manservant, ill-advised use of kitchen implements. I'm sorry about the cookies and cream ice cream. I'm not really. And by trigger warnings, I mean, it makes some really funny jokes about cookies and cream ice cream having semen in it. Wait, semen? Or was it semen? I don't remember. Anyway, it's Butcher and Blackbird. I hated it. I hated it so much. But I really did not like this book. I'm going to tell you right off the bat why. There is no plot, no stakes, and maybe I could forgive that, except also had exceptionally poor character work. The 2 main characters that we get POVs from have only 2 character traits, and they're not much of anything, until about 50% of the way through the book when the woman main character, Sloane, suddenly her main character trait is that she's insecure, which came out of nowhere. That was just suddenly a scene that the author wanted to write, I guess. And then our main guy character, Rowan, is just horny and Irish and also is a chef. A lot of Butcher and Blackbird just did not make sense though. Like there was one part where, and I just don't really understand how the FBI just doesn't know that these 2 chuckle fucks are doing all of this murder. I find that impossible to believe. And then it goes on to describe every facet of this woman's body, specifically listing what kind of perfume she's wearing, and also says that his eyes specifically linger on her breasts. Again, for like the 3rd, 4th time probably. Sure, this is typical for him, but that's exactly why I don't know why we just had that scene of, he's just not that into me. This isn't development of anything. I know she has great tits. I have been told since chapter 2. Oh my god, it's like that thing from the Swan Princess.
You're beautiful.
Thank you. But what else?
What else?
Is beauty all that matters to you?
What else is there?
You look gorgeous, Blackbird. I'm so happy you're here. And he's blushing. Yeah, bitch, you're so right. This dude is not into you at all. He thinks you're repulsive, actually. You for sure misread the situation. Most definitely. Again, we are 50% in now, and it just occurred to me, apparently, in my notes, past Rachel said, I just now realized this has no overarching plot, not even a whisper. And we could have had a serial killer that's really elusive, a serial killer that keeps sending them notes saying, come get me, Butcher and Blackbird. But no overarching plot here, just randomly deciding to do, she doesn't know if he likes her or not. So at one point they go to a serial, because they are serial killers who murder serial killers. They go to this serial killer's house and he actively has victims at his house. One of them they are so mean to. I don't understand the morality of these 2 people. And that's part of what I talked about at length in my review, was having that conversation about their morality, like who's more moral than the other. Could have been a fun competition, but instead they have a competition that isn't a competition at all. And then they fall in love with each other along the way, I guess. There was a part in Butcher and Blackbird where they go to a serial killer's house, and what ensued was they put this victim in the basement and then they run off, even though the serial killer is obviously going to come back to the basement, and then they run off to go find the serial killer. He's just going to come back. Why are you running off? So they run off to the serial killer's barn, make out for the first time, and then they hear the serial killer come back to the basement and start fucking with the victim. And I'm like, why'd you leave in the first place? Just so that you guys can, make out in a barn? For what? I was so confused. It was so stupid. Oh, and the sex scene was so horrible. Oh my God. So he squeezes out the lube and it says it drips down her pleated hole. I wanted to no longer be able to comprehend words at that point. And really it just seemed like it was written to set us up for like further brothers in the series, because part of this is like the guy is this Irish guy with 2 brothers who are also single, and sure enough, like they will also get their own books. I think one's already out, right? Leather and Lark, isn't that out? What's the other one? It's coming out too. I do plan to review them to see if the other ones are any better, but this one was so stupid. The trigger warnings were really pissing me off. I had a rant at the beginning of it about trigger warnings. These videos are all linked below. You can go watch if you want to see the full thing, but I just feel like trigger warnings are like an allergy list. You need to use them for the people who want to avoid certain foods, right? For whatever reason. And then the people who don't need them can just eat. I don't read every ingredients list anymore. I'm not vegan anymore, so I ignore ingredients lists for the most part now. But if I'm like feeding my kid, I have to check ingredients for certain things that will trigger his eczema. I mean, I do sometimes avoid certain foods, but typically like if I'm having a bad rosé rosacea day. I just don't eat spicy food. So like telling me whether or not something has that, like I just want to, I don't want to trigger a certain response. Like I want to know if something has miscarriage in it so I don't have a panic attack. Like we don't use trigger warnings lists to make stupid bad jokes. We use trigger warnings lists to help you find your correct reader. So if you're not going to use them right, don't use them at all. If you're not going to use them to like actually aid your readers, like they're an assistive tool. When I use my e-reader, I have dyslexia, so I changed the font to dyslexic font. If you don't need dyslexic font, don't use it, but it should be there in case I need it, right? So like it's there for those of us who need it. And if you don't need it, just turn the page. That one woman who had that absolute temper tantrum over trigger warnings.
I hate trigger warnings. I do not think that authors should cater to those who have such issues that they could be triggered.
Oh my God, get a grip. Get a grip immediately. And then in her comments, people were complaining about the ones in Butcher and Blackbird, and I'm like, the fake ones that were talking about ice cream, you can't even handle fake ones talking about ice cream. You guys are so unserious. Wow, this video is getting spicier than I intended. I don't even have a script. I just have a list of books and I'm being so spicy. Sorry, I got off on a tangent. 1 star. Absolutely just 1 star. Hated it. Read a similar sort of, kind of, I thought that they were going to be more similar than they actually were, thing, Lights Out, and liked it more. So I prefer this. Now I want to do a video on, you know, I read a lot of dark romance this year. I mean, a lot is interesting way to define that, but I read some dark romance this year and not all of it I hated. Natalie, one of my best friends, Natalie, over at Weirdo Book Club does dark romance diaries because she reads a lot more than I do. I would like to do a dark romance diary type thing, except it's not gonna be a diary. It's just going to be me giving an overview of all the dark romance I read in 2025 and what worked and what didn't, because some of them I gave like 4 stars. And I was surprised because they were the ones in particular that I thought that I would hate the most, and they actually weren't bad. At all. I mean, some parts were a little wonky, but you know, what can you do? So I thought about doing that, but I never gave any of them 5 stars. They were stuck at 4. So I could do like a compare and contrast between like what works for me in dark romance and what doesn't, if you would like. The next one is the 3rd Colleen Hoover book I read. Oh, Colleen. November 9 was a crime, literally and figuratively. You literally wrote a man doing a crime and getting away with it. This man set this woman's house on fire and then manipulates her into a 5-year relationship with him where they only meet up once a year. Before they go on their date, he's weirdly into her scars. I just want to remind you that I knew, you're not supposed to know, but I knew that he caused them. There was another line in here. It's great chemistry. The banter. Woo-wee. 0 out of 10. Are you booksting me? It's like sexting, but out loud and with books. It's actually not. It's just terrible. She says that the guy she went on a date with seemed kind of weirded out by her scars, and she doesn't want him or anyone else to see her left breast, which was majorly harmed by the fire. Am I looking at the left breast, which was majorly harmed by the fire? Wow. Can't tell left and rights, but y'all trust me to review books. And he tells her, again, how to feel about her own body and how other people perceive her, like how to feel about that, to which her inner monologue says, I'm so pissed he thinks he has the right to talk to me that way, but the fact that he talked to me that way made me wish my heart had lips so it could kiss him. I'm done. 1 pair of lips seemingly just isn't enough. Her heart must also sprout lips with which to kiss this mediocre man. This was a thriller, except it ended in a happily ever after. Ugh. And when he tells her the truth, she's like, I don't want to talk to you. And then her mom reads his manuscript where he talks about what happened, and her mom guilts her into being with him. Horrible. Horrible. You guilted your daughter into being with a manipulative man who lied to her for 5 years? Absolutely not. As a mom, I could never. And yes, I did read November 9 tandem read on audio and ebook. The next bad one, Sons of Mayhem, which is a biker romance, which was so stupid. This is a self-published book by an author who writes a lot of biker romances, and I assume all of them are as bad as this one, which was terrible. It was nonsensical. It was really insensitive. As far as the Mexicans were concerned, they weren't at war at the moment. It was a brief time of peace and their guard was down. This was their territory and it had been for years. No one even wanted it. It was their people's land. A black gang or anyone else wouldn't even want it. A black gang wouldn't even want it. is what the book said. Listen, that is really fucking racist. I cannot believe you would sit down, type those words, and think that this is publishable material. I can't believe that people pay money for this. I'm not gonna read it to you, but there's a bunch of racist shit, like anti-Asian sentiment, and then he then violently a Korean woman. Had basically no plot. It didn't make sense. The characters were like a complete empty shells, and I didn't even have a good time laughing at it. It was so stupid. That and their fucking idiot meth heads. I don't want to deal with getting rid of their stupid bodies. And one of them is like, why don't we just run them over with our bikes? And it says, nah, they'll get my bike all methy. Methy. Like messy, but methy. I paused a second before getting his pun and bursting out laughing. Wow, I'm laughing on the inside. Can you tell? So then they stand up on their bike pegs and go, "Aroo!" Man, that is, wow, sexy. I have never felt more attracted to men than right now. I let out my pent-up emotions in my cry of woo that went on an amount of time that would have embarrassed me in any other circumstance. But right then, I didn't fucking care. Once again, I'm petitioning to bring back shame. Lonnie is from London. We called him London for a bit, but that was too long, so now he's Lonnie. I would just like to direct your attention to the words Lonnie and London. They have both not only the same amount of letters, but the same amount of syllables. It takes the exact same amount of time to say Lonnie as it does to say London. Another one I did not have a good time laughing at, and also tandem read on audio, this one was really starting to piss me off, was Gothicana by Runix. This is the second to last one. Gothicana by Runix had quite possibly the most disturbing sex scenes. This is between a teacher and a college student. He's like, you have to stop me. Stop yourself. He puts his hand up her skirt, makes contact, and is like, you're not wearing any underwear. And she says, I don't like wearing underwear. And it says, you've ruined me with that knowledge. Oh, hey, same. I finally have something in common with the love interest. He takes out his fingers, puts them in her mouth, and I'm sorry, but all I can think is, I know damn well this man has not washed his hands. But he then, at the taste, says, ambrosia. No. Then he calls her a witch. They hear a noise, and he's like, this can't happen again. And he scurries away like the little cockroach he is. I would love for that to be the end of that. Unfortunately, it's not. It gets so much worse. And he says, whatever this is, it cannot happen. I'm dangerous. Girls who tangle with me dance with death.
I don't fit in.
I want to fuck you in front of that boy you held hands with. That took a turn. He's like, this is madness. And if she, was supposed to respond with something normal, she doesn't. She says, if this is madness, then drown me in it. And then they start making out, and I died inside. The molecules in her body recognize the molecules in his, it said. Great. At this point, we are now 40% into this book, and we're getting the first of many sex scenes, and yet we haven't gotten into the first of any plot. He says, at finding out she is a virgin, you chose the wrong guy for your first time, little crow, but it's too late now. I'm going to fuck you so raw you'll never get me out. This pussy is mine. Jail, jail, jail. Jail for Runix. Jail for this nasty 28-year-old man. Jail everybody. Jail, jail, jail. He slaps her on the vagina, and then before he puts his dick in, he says, this is our madness. Okay. And she thinks his dick feels like a battering ram. He keeps saying she's such a good girl, and then she says she has magic eyes and a magic pussy. I have curled into myself and died at this point. Here is a live reaction of me listening to this scene. She hears voices in her head, and these voices are literally never explained. There's several of them. You don't know who they are. They're just there. People are being murdered, past and present. And it turns out in the end that one of her classmates is also her teacher boyfriend's cousin who really wants to fuck him. And it's supposed to be like dark and mysterious, but in reality, it's just fucking stupid. And my biggest takeaway from those was the sex scenes. There's one part where he says that her wetness, he calls it ambrosia. Oh, Gothicana. And in the end, they have kids together, and she's writing a book called Gothicana. The title of it is the title of her own book. Why? It's just a circle. Why is it called Gothicana? Because she wrote a book called Gothicana about a book called Gothicana. Like, what? It's just, I really, really like the word Gothicana. It just sounds so pretty, but I don't know how to actually write it into the book in a meaningful way. So I'll just say, It's the title of a book at the end. The number one worst book of the year, the one at the top of the list that I also read on audio, is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. Come to find out, somebody in my comments said, hey, isn't this the same author that wrote this other book? And I said, I don't know, I'll look it up. And that author, she's like, yeah, their pen name is Frankie Rose. And I was like, Frankie Rose? Oh my God, blast from the past. Callie Hart and Frankie Rose are the same person. And Frankie Rose wrote this series. And back in 2014, I was living in Japan, living my best life, doing whatever the fuck I wanted. I would just go sit near the beach and read terrible books that I got for free off of Kindle. And one of them was this series by Frankie Rose, which she never finished. And every year I Google to see if she's finished it. Turns out she hasn't been finishing it because she's been writing this. So your crimes are numerous, I see. Okay, that's fine. Callie Hart wrote Quicksilver, which is a absolute nonsense trash heap. Absolute nonsense trash heap. I, this year, made fun of some books that I didn't think were great, but I wouldn't call them trash heaps, right? So like they got like 2 stars. The Deer and the Dragon is one I mentioned earlier, but also Serpent and the Wings of Night is another. When the Moon Hatched is another. These are all like 2 to 2.5s, right? 2.25s. I do quarter stars, and I stand by it. I don't care if you don't. You can do whatever you want. The point is, there are books that were not great that I have rant reviews on, but they're not making the worst of the year list, right? This one is, and it's because out of all of the books, the romantasy books that I read this year, this is so terrible, so egregious, so nonsensical. What the fuck are we doing? I could not. This is about a girl who grows up in a poor area of town, except her mom was a part of the resistance, except she didn't teach her daughter to think. She didn't teach her daughter to think. And then so her brother gets arrested, and then she gets portaled to a different world where this guy is, and she sends him back to go get her brother, and he brings back the wrong person because he was like, oh, this guy smelled like you, because you fucked him once, and I didn't bring back your brother, I brought back this guy. Okay. But also, there's just so much poor writing here. Like, in one sentence, we don't say women, we say females. And then like 2 pages later, she said fae women. I thought you didn't have women here. I thought you only had females. And then everything we do in the beginning of the book, where we are in this queendom under this like tyrannical ruler who somehow has been alive for thousands of years, and they don't even question this apparently. They only have desert. They never have any night. There's only sand and heat and 2 suns. How the fuck are we getting whiskey when we live in the middle of nowhere and there is no water? We're on water rations. I forgot where I was even going. There's so much wrong with this book that makes absolutely no sense. So tell me why this book not only has a huge following, but got a movie deal. TV show? I don't care. What are we doing? Are you serious? Nothing in this book makes any sense. This is so undercooked. It doesn't make any sense. It's like telling me, here's a plate of scrambled eggs and giving me a chicken. And I just want to read this line to you that is so bonkers. All right, O'Shellith, Lane isn't going to let this go until you've been given the Cliff Notes. The Cliff Notes! Ah! The Cliff Notes. No, right, because Clifton, whatever his fucking name was, definitely existed in this world and wrote the Cliff Notes books in this Fae world. Surely he portaled in the 1950s through the Quicksilver into this Fae world and wrote Cliff Notes. You're right. I forgot. But how could she be so old if she's human? How has she managed to reign for Rain? Rain spelled wrong. Rain, R-E-I-N. How has she managed to reign like a horse? If I'd asked you something, you wouldn't have answered me. And if you had, it wouldn't have been the truth. Elroy swears that a man will lie about the size of his every time a woman asks him. Are you asking me how big my is, Osha? I don't care how big it is. I care about the way you answer. It's big enough to make you scream and then some. Ugh, boring. Boo! You're lazy. Ask a man how big his is and he'll show you that he's full of shit. Maybe, but I'm not a man, I'm a fey male. Oh, that's weird because earlier we said fey women. I'm just confused. Quicksilver is the worst book I read this year because it's just so stupid. And it also has lines that made me want to absolutely die, such as, "You spayed my mate." I have a really long rant review on that one if you want to go watch it. All of these rants are linked below. Tell me what your worst book of the year was. If you made it this far into the video, I have these like sparkles on my nails for Happy New Year. Leave sparkle emoji down below for New year, new terrible books. My best books of the year video is going to be going up in a few days. I don't remember my schedule. I have my schedule written down in my planner, which is downstairs. So if you're looking forward to that, the worst books of the year video always does like tremendously more views than best books of the year, but I am making it nonetheless. I'm very excited to talk to you about it. All right, thank you so much for watching. Comments and questions down below. Like and subscribe if you feel like it, and I will see you next time. Bye. And before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons are Alexander, Andy, Ashley H, Astra, Brittany Bobitney, Call Me Kodiak, Cami, Chocos, Homesick for Taiwan, DJ Rocktopus, Ellie, Emerald Dodge, Eric D, Jess, Joel White, John E, K, Kaleno K, Casey McKenzie, Katie M, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lady Chips, Lemon Jelly, Lex, Another Lex, Lily, Mataraptor, Max B, Megwin Rose, Melissa, Minby, Mixer Boneless, Alice, Peggy Lou, Rain, Reese, SJ, Samar, Scarlett, Spoopy, Steph Bowen, 3 Raccoons in a Trench Coat, I love that name, Tori, Urchin Audrey, White Raven 13, and Zorvictia. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. And last but not least, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my potato starch Marxists, and those are Alejandra, Alicia Needs a Nap, Alistair, Althea, Amanda D, Angelica, Artie the Ninth, Ballads and Bookends, Beck, Blythe, Bookish by Jenna, Bookish Rabbit, Bree, Kate B, Caitlin, Carlin, Carly, Casper, Kate W, Catherine, Kathy, Claire Online, Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Courtney, Darius, Danielle, Desiree Michelle, Dorothea, Is Not Like Other Girls, Drive-By Thinker, Ebby, Emily A, Emma, Aaron with 2 E's, Fiona, Gadarn, Gilf Enthusiast, Halia Artisan, Hannah C, Harpy Curo, Helen P, Harising, JM Tennant, Jay is on Olympus, Jelly V, Jello Salad, Jen Michelle, Gender Queer, Jenny G, Jessa Sue, Jill, Jojo Bookish, Juicy Wizard, Kai, Catherine, Katie, Katrina, Kaylee, Kayala, Kendra, KMTV, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura is Angry, Lauren G, Lazarus Ray, Lindsay, Lisa B, Lisa L, LP, Lou Siri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Maddie, Madison, Man Eating Plant, Megan, Malara, Mentally Unwell, May, Mima Who, Myth Lesbian, Never, Nicole G, Nicole R, Paige P, Pandemonium, Paul, Penelope, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Plague Carrier, Pandemonium, Queen Cereal, Rachel B, Reba, Rebecca, Rebecca R, Rhea, Ronnie, Rosie Thorns, Rowan, Sakoria, Sadie, Saintbringer, Sakyalume, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Shamed, Shannon, Sheen Onion, Sean, Sophie L, Stardust, T Delegati, Talia, That Nerdy Mystic, This Is Not a Trap, Tiana, Too Thick to Work Today, Trashcan Teddy, Triple M, Tito Phoenix, Unicorn Jenny, Wobbs, and Writer A. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend.